Sit down, please.
Applied Behaviour Analysis versus Supernanny. Science versus experience.
Is the most difficult child for our family.
Now, if you want to create that supportive and nurturing environment for your family, then you might not want to listen to every single thing that Supernanny says.
Oh.
And I'll show you why. And part of the reason why I'm doing this is I want to share the good that applied behavior analysis can do for you and your family. And one of the ways that I'm going to do this is to actually share some posts from Reddit, which were written by real people describing their real experiences of actually coming across applied behavior analysis and using it to support and build that nurturing environment for their family.
I'm a home theater installer.
I'm a full-time fashion design student. Be good for daddy, okay? And I work part-time in the evenings at a local coffee house. Going to school full-time and being a mom full-time and working, I'd be good, okay? Sometimes feels just really overwhelming for me.
And very early on here, we're seeing that mom has a lot on her plate. She's got a lot of things competing for her time and attention. And we call these competing contingencies. Now, I personally like a challenge, but there comes a point when it's far too much, because you can get to a point where you have so much to do that you can't actually implement that intervention effectively. And we're seeing this very early on. It's not a great sign.
Our penalty box is our timeout area.
You cannot cry.
Stop yelling. Sit here quietly. It's not effective, and it seems to be a waste of time and really escalate the situation.
I mean, I can see that they're trying with their discipline.
You can sit in there 5 minutes, or we can go for 6 minutes.
But they're not getting it right, and that's why it's not working.
Thank you for sitting down.
So the penalty box is an example of a punishment procedure. Specifically, this is a timeout procedure, and this is where you remove a person from a positively reinforcing environment. And this is key. The environment actually has to be positively reinforcing for it to be effective. In other words, that environment has to be fun and engaging for the kids. Another key thing is the loss of reinforcement must be immediate, and that includes attention. Otherwise, it's ineffective. And there must be a clear difference between the time in environment and the time out environment. The other thing is, if you're using punishment procedure, the schedule of punishment has to be consistent in the beginning. Just like if you're using positive reinforcement, the schedule of reinforcement has to be consistent in the beginning during the early days while people are getting familiar with what's expected of them. So yes, the penalty box is not being done right, but I would be looking for positive reinforcement procedures first before resorting to anything near punishment. However, Supernanny's right, it's not being done right, so that's a match, and that's 1 out of 1.
As I continue to observe this family, I saw that the younger son, Bronson, is quite aggressive.
So, over here, Supernanny is carrying out direct observations of the family situation within the natural environment. And this is a key part, and the reason for this is we would be looking for relationships between what's happening in the environment and the behaviors of interest. So that's a match, and that is 2 out of 2. So I came across this post, and there are many posts like it. This is someone who's recently started using applied behavior analysis with their child. And their question is whether this service is actually worth it, because there's a big time commitment and also there's a big money commitment. And the answer is, the science is absolutely sound. There is lots of research out there. There is a huge body of evidence. There is a limit on money, there's a limit on time. And what we want to do is we want to support someone with a behavior that is going to improve their long-term quality of life. And that's what we should be looking at when thinking about behavior change.
He had a few incidences 1 week at school where he was aggressive toward a staff member and threatened to pick up like a small children's chair and throw it. And so at that point, he was asked to leave the program.
How long has he been suspended for?
Indefinitely from that particular preschool.
Bronson's nursery school has expelled him.
So where there are several behaviors that we could target, it's always best to start with one because it's extremely time consuming. If you're going to do a good job, it's best to start with one. So a behavior that is likely to cause harm to the person or is causing harm to other people is going to be very high priority. So we need to do a functional behavior assessment to understand what's influencing Bronson's behavior. So make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that video.
And just when we thought it was over, he took a break for it again and grabbed a scooter.
Stop on your scooter now.
Once again, Bronson broke out of his timeout and he was heading towards the traffic. But this time, he was on a scooter, giving his mum a challenge to catch up with him.
You are not to come out of the house. Okay, you're to sit down in penalty and have...
How many times is this child going to run out of the house, and are we going to be lucky because he's not been hit by a car? I mean, at that point, you realise there can't be any more timeouts.
So I'm actually going to make a decision here on observation. You're going to forget about time out with him today because I've seen how you handle time out. Okay.
So in the United States, you have the BACB Code of Ethics. And then in the UK, you have the UK SBA Code of Ethical and Professional Conduct. And in that code, every behavior analyst, a certified behavior analyst, will have an obligation to protect their clients from risk. So here you need to take measures to reduce the risk of harm to your client. So over here we have a match, and that is 3 out of 3.
I'm here to set the record straight of why your penalty box isn't working. You guys do not give your children a warning. So you never allow them to think for themselves and to make choices for themselves that then allow them to be accountable for their consequences.
Yeah, that makes a lot better sense.
The second situation here is that when they're in the penalty box, if they just move an inch out of the little square that you give them, you place them back. So of course, the time escalates again and escalates again. So you guys go around in circles, to the point that you then become inconsistent. And when you're inconsistent, the message the boys get, today you may stick to your guns, tomorrow you might not.
So Supernanny breaks down why she believes that the penalty box is ineffective, and she gives 2 reasons. And number 1, that the parents are not giving a warning. We call this a reflexive conditioned motivating operation. And what it is a signal that conditions are about to get worse. And that would increase the behavior that would remove that reflexive conditioned motivating operation. In other words, it would increase the behavior that would remove the warning. And the second thing she says is the schedule of punishment, i.e. there needs to be consistency. So whenever a behavior has gone wrong, when the target behavior occurs, you would give the warning and then you would implement the punishment procedure. And you would do this consistently. What Supernanny is actually recommending is a schedule of punishment, which is an FR2, a fixed ratio of 2. So that is when the behavior first happens, a warning is issued. That's number 1. And then when the behavior happens again, then the punishment procedure is implemented. So that's 2. So for every 2 behaviors, you would have 1 punishment procedure actually implemented then. While I agree that both these things would increase the effectiveness of the penalty box, we disagree in that I would be exploring what other positive reinforcement procedures could we use and what skills could we actually build on before falling down or falling back to punishment procedures and relying on punishment procedures. And actually, that's also in the code of conduct. We have to explore and exhaust all positive reinforcement procedures or negative reinforcement procedures completely before even considering punishments. So that is a mismatch, and we are down to 3 out of 4. And here we are at Reddit post number 2. And this post, we have a parent who's actually explaining or describing how applied behavior analysis has made a difference, a positive difference to their family, because it's actually reduced self-injurious behavior, it's increased communication, and also it's increased the child's social skills. And this has happened in a relatively short space of time. So although applied behavior analysis has been used in this specific way, it can be used in sports, and it's used in business and HR departments. You have organizational behavior management, OBM, and applied behavior analysis is actually also used in animal husbandry. The science of behavior is sound and it is lawful, and you can use it to improve your family's quality of life.
First thing that this family needs is some house rules. So I'm going to bring that in to put everybody on the same page.
Rules and perks. What are house rules?
This is great. This is rule posting. And rule posting is an antecedent intervention. And that means it's something that you put in place before the behavior happens. And rule posting is good because it clarifies what is required, but also it sets some behavioral goals for the family. And this whole exercise is important because it helps the family to establish rule-governed behavior, particularly for the children. And the rule-governed behavior is important because it allows for delayed consequences to exert an influence on your immediate behavior. So you don't speed when you're driving during the shopping. You don't speed because you know the rule. If you get caught speeding, you're going to get a ticket in the future. And that's the effect that rule-governed behavior has. But it does not just apply to punishment. It also applies to reinforcement. So rule-governed behavior gives you the ability to delay gratification, which means you can have long-term goals. So you would avoid the impulsive purchase of a trending gadget in favor of saving money to go on that family holiday. So we love the rules, and that's a match, and that is 4 out of 5.
Perks are the things you're going to get to do when you behave and you show what good boys you are.
And it makes me so happy to see Supernanny introducing this. So she's talking about perks, and essentially this is a positive reinforcement procedure. And positive reinforcement is the addition of a stimulus following a behavior that then increases the future frequency of that behavior. You can think of it as a reward. So we like to prioritize positive reinforcement procedures. So I love to see this, and that is a match in approaches, and we are at 5 out of 6.
So what could be some rules? What are some things that need to be rules?
Yeah, listen.
Listening.
Clean the room.
Okay.
No hitting.
No hitting.
That's a good one right there. I like that one.
There's never been really a set of rules in the house.
If you hit, you sit.
So doing that together was really, I think, meaningful for the kids.
What are things that you guys would like to do?
Go to the park.
Go to the park. That's a great one.
And this is very good. So over here, we're seeing something called participative management. And here the kids are being involved in actually creating the rules, which is important because, number one, it is very likely going to reduce counter control. And counter control is a response that is evoked when you try to control someone. So you're reducing the likelihood of that happening, which is great. And number two, by having them involved in that creation process, they're actually buying into it. So it should be less effort to have the family adopting the rules. The kids were asked what they would like if they behaved well. This is called a preference assessment, where you're assessing the activities that someone prefers. And it's important when we're using reinforcement, we need to know what's actually effective in increasing specific behavior. And I covered all the different preference assessments in a video where I used dating TV to show preference assessments. You should check it out. So that is a match, and we are at 6 out of 7. I have a third Reddit post, which was a reply to a parent asking about whether behavior analysis was actually worth it. Parent replied saying the procedure was worth it, but it required a bigger time commitment. But also another interesting thing to share here is that the child was not just seeing someone who's in the field of applied behavior analysis, they were also seeing another professional. In particular, they were seeing a speech and language therapist. So quite often we work in collaboration with other professionals. And this is important as we strive to create that nurturing and supportive environment for your family.
Bring their lunch to school.
He's going through the motions with you because he wants to see what you're going to do next.
Okay.
You'll give him a warning for his behaviour.
Stop spitting at mommy or you will go into the penalty box.
Right, stand up.
I don't like being away.
What you're going to do is to place him into the penalty box, okay? And you're going to tell him why he's there. You're then going to ignore him completely and you're going to set the alarm for 3 minutes, okay?
You're sitting in here for hitting and spitting at mommy, and you're gonna sit down.
Oh, that voice is not good enough. Oh, no. This is what I'm talking about, this voice.
You're sitting in penalty box for spitting and hitting mommy, and that's not acceptable. And you're gonna sit down for 3 minutes and not get up.
Ignore the profanity, don't even worry about that. It's all for a reaction.
And over here we see behavioral skills training, and this is a competence-based training. And the reason this is a preferred approach is that knowledge-based training or classroom-based training is often ineffective when it comes to improving performance. And the reason is, one is teaching a doing skill, whilst the other is teaching a saying skill. And behavioral skills training has 5 components. Number 1, you would describe the skill and get the person to describe the skill back to you. And this is just showing verbal competence. And then number 2, you would then demonstrate the skill for the person to imitate. And then number 3, you would then observe the person while they perform the skill. And then number 4, you would give immediate feedback to improve performance. Now, another key part of this is that you would take whatever skill you're teaching, you would break it down into its component steps, and then you would score each step. Now, the 5th part is you would repeat these steps until the person was performing the component steps with 100% accuracy at least 3 times in a row. And at that point, we say the skill is mastered. So we are actually missing steps in this whole procedure. And for that reason, we go down. We are at 6 out of 8.
And when you've got kids running near a road, you need to look out. And so I need to put safety measures into this house. Every day when you come out to play, Mum and Dad are going to show you where you can go up to by using this ribbon. Know this, boys. If you go past the ribbon, you will do time out.
Safety is non-negotiable, so I completely understand the immediate consequences over here. And what Jo is doing is increasing the salience of the discriminative stimulus. She's making the signals clear. If you cross this particular boundary, then the punishment procedure will be implemented. So there is one thing that is missing. And for me, it's the positive reinforcement procedures, but not just that, it's also the skill building. So I would be looking to teach danger of traffic and teaching that awareness, because statements may not be sufficient. So at least I want to make sure that that base is covered, that I know your child has the knowledge and the understanding of potential consequences of actually running out into the road. So yes, I agree. There have to be immediate consequences because it's a safety issue and we need to keep our children safe. But also we need to be doing more. Let's give them the skills to understand the danger. That's what's missing. But it's a match. So we go up to 7 out of 9.
If he gets up from the dishwasher door, because that's what the penalty box is, you'll place him back without talking to him, okay?
If you do use a punishment procedure, then it's good if you minimize attention, because quite often what happens is the function of the target behavior, of the problem behavior, will often have an element of attention in it as well. So as an example, I've actually worked with an individual where the function of their behavior was to get reprimands because they really enjoyed when someone's face was really expressive. They found it quite entertaining. The back and forth and engaging in arguments actually makes the procedure ineffective because sometimes attention is part of the function of the behavior. So I'm in agreement with Jo. Positive reinforcement procedures need to be prioritized, but if these are the procedures that are in use, then you need to minimize attention. And that is a match, and we are at 8 out of 10.
On my second day with this family, I wanted to address the boys drawing all over the walls. You see this table here? So I've created this space for them to be artistic and stop the vandalism.
So Jo has targeted the behavior of actually drawing on the wall. And before you tackle a behavior, you would be interested in the function of that behavior. Find out what the function of that inappropriate behavior is. Then you would search for a replacement behavior that serves the same function but is actually appropriate. And that's the strategy. And in this case, that would be just drawing at the table. Now, we have made a key assumption here that the function of drawing on the wall is that they actually wanted to do some drawing. However, if the function was to actually get attention, or so I can get this reaction, then that's different. The drawing on the table would not be as effective. Not unless if you combined it with regular attention. You would combine the drawing at the table with occasional verbal praise. Dad might walk over, say, wow, what a lovely drawing, and then carry on for a few minutes cooking or whatever he's doing in the kitchen, and then come back and check on the drawing like, wow, you're doing such an awesome job. So that way you're getting the tangible and the attention. Anyhow, we are in agreement. This is great. That's another match, and we are at 9 out of 11.
Next, what I really want to do is concentrate on Hunter's homework. He has ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, and it can be very challenging for him to focus at any length of time, which creates a lot of frustration between himself and his parents. Right, Hunter, this is what I've got here. Okay, homework tips. Guess who they're for? No, Mum and Dad. Listen and be patient. Ask what you can do to help. Lots of praise for what a good job. What do you think about those, Hunter? You think Mum and Dad need them? Yeah, give me 5. All right.
So we change other people's behavior by changing the environment. And the environment includes our own behavior. And this is determinism. Behavior is lawful. So it's the environment that controls behavior. And Supernanny has done a great job of actually pointing this out. So fantastic.
Dad sat down to do a math assignment with Hunter. I actually thought it would go pretty easy considering the tips were right in front of him.
Which one's higher, 2.6 or 2.5?
This one is hard.
2.5. 7 is wrong, and I want you to tell me why after you redo this. 7 is wrong.
What is wrong?
8's wrong. Pay attention to me, please, because this is what you don't understand.
Yes, I do.
This.
Dad was already forgetting the first tip, to be patient, and he and Hunter were getting more and more frustrated.
I didn't know about that.
Hold on, now you're arguing. Would you like to sit in timeout? This is your final warning. This is your final warning.
But it seems to me that more is needed here. So for example, we could do a task analysis. So we could take this complex mathematical problem and then we could break it down into its component steps to little teachable units. Now, the other thing is by teaching in smaller units and having breaks in between, you have more opportunities for positive reinforcement, as well as time to process the information. And actually, I wasn't the best at mathematics until somebody actually took the time, sat down with me and broke the complex problems into small manageable problems and actually got the foundation in. And then in the end, I ended up doing a maths degree. So space, time could be helpful. And Supernanny could actually use behavioral skills training over here to show Dad how to use a task analysis and break things down for Hunter. And that would mean a more positive, nurturing environment for the family. But instead, what we see now is things are descending into punishment. So we go down, and that is 9 out of 12. So back to these Reddit posts, and this is Reddit post number 4. And this was a parent contributing to the post saying that their child had made significant progress in as little as a month. That will vary from individual to individual. The thing is, when you're actually in it day to day, working with an individual, working on all these different skills, you don't always see the difference on a daily basis, because it's very small differences that happen each day, but they accumulate to a very significant difference over time.
No, I'm gonna correct him.
You're ripping my paper.
No, I'm not moving your paper. You're moving it. I'm not moving my hand. You're trying to
Right
grab
there.
it.
See, that's what you did.
Come on, let's go.
No.
Yes, let's go. Let's go.
Let me do my homework.
Let's go.
Let me do
Let's
my
go.
homework.
Not only did Dad lose his patience, but he escalated the problem by placing Hunter into a penalty box. Dad really needs to understand how difficult it is for Hunter because he's got ADHD. And quite frankly, I think he overreacted. I do need to step back in. In this particular circumstance, this would have been about giving him space to just cool off. Okay, because at this stage, you both are feeling agitated. This is a no-win situation here. And we want a win-win always. After our little chat in the kitchen, I saw a marked difference in Dad and a different response from Hunter.
Let me have you tell me what I'm supposed to do.
Listen and be patient.
The homework tips definitely help you with a child with ADHD. Be patient. That's the #1 thing.
You change the environment, you change the behavior. So Dad is being more patient, allowing more time, and we see Hunter's behavior also change. Fantastic.
Later on in the afternoon, Bronson started to play up again. His inability to communicate with his parents to the point where they understand him is creating these meltdowns. And really, Mum needs to understand that. Hold on a minute. Hold on a minute, because he's talking to you. Okay? Come down.
Right.
When he's shouting, just come down and listen to him.
Okay.
When you don't understand what he's saying, just tell him, I don't understand you, I can hear you. That way we can get him to start talking more.
Engage in that conversation.
Yeah, because when he feels like he's ignored, it freaks him out.
I don't actually agree with Supernanny over here because, number one, we need a functional behavior assessment to actually understand what's behind Bronson's aggression. Because I don't think it's just down to communication. I think there's something else going on there. And even if it was communication, communication is not a function of behavior. We need to understand the reason. So there is a reason behind that attempt to communicate. And that's what a functional behavior assessment is actually going to find out. And then we can teach the appropriate skill. That's number one. Number two, coming down and listening to Bronson, you're encouraging communication and doing some modeling, which is great, but absolutely key. We need another professional in here. So we need a speech and language therapist up in here working with Bronson and giving us guidance on what we should be doing and practicing going forward. Just from a professional standpoint, I would be reluctant to be giving any kind of advice that's outside my scope of practice. Anyhow, we go down and we are at 9 out of 13.
I'm going for several days. I'm leaving you guys to remember the techniques that have been put in place. They've had me around supporting them, but this is about them supporting each other now and doing it on their own. Follow through with the penalty box. Okay. Boundaries outside. Homework tips are a must.
And there goes Supernanny. She hasn't left a written plan. She's done some behavioral skills training, but I feel there are components missing. And there are existing competing contingencies within the family still. I still think mom has a lot on her plate, and we haven't really tried to address that. She could have left them in a better place, but sometimes because of the time pressures, we do not actually do everything we would have liked to do in an intervention. But overall, it's a match, and that is 10 out of 14.
Whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa, what's going on?
I got blue and then he just takes it.
Who got him out?
Me.
Now ask Bronson what happened.
Bronson, what
You
happened?
can use
He
his
got
words.
him out. I got him out.
You got him out? And then you're telling me you got him out, huh? Are you sure you got him out?
Ron got him out. I say I want blue. Then he takes blue.
What's normally the rule on who gets him out? They get a pick.
Look at the difference. Pierce would have been the first to talk and you'd have been all ears. And nobody would have given Bronson a chance. Because you know what? Bronson weren't really talking much and we just thought, well, we'll leave him there. We won't even ask. See, now you're giving Bronson a chance to talk. And so there's not this anger and you hear both sides, which is what you're supposed to be doing.
So here we see the family's done a great job maintaining all the techniques that Supernanny is taught. And actually, we see Supernanny make a positive impact on Bronson's life pretty quickly, which I think is absolutely brilliant. So how much of our approach actually aligns with what Supernanny did? Well, that was 71%. And as for the 5th Reddit post, it's actually relevant to Bronson. And here is a parent who's talking about their child receiving Applied Behaviour Analysis services. And they say, after using Applied Behaviour Analysis for a week, they are already seeing the massive difference to their son's communication. That their son is trying to say more words to have his needs met. And that is the reason that I do the job that I do. And I will see you next video where we will work on Bronson's functional behavior assessment.